All right, all right. We've got Adam Roth from Aridus Industries with us. We've very exciting, like big debut for you here in Las Vegas for SHOT Show. Um, there's stuff that I know that you've been working on for quite a long time that the world is finally getting a chance to look at, and I wanted to get a moment before all the chaos of the show kicks off and talk about what's new within the product line. So. You were at Range Day yesterday, correct?
Yeah, I was at the Beretta Range Day yesterday, getting to shoot some pretty cool guns and test out some pretty cool gear and show off some pretty neat accessories that we've got.
So tell us, because there's a whole new product and product family for your product line. What were you showing off yesterday?
Yeah, so this is the newest member of the Imperium family, which finally has a name, which is also kind of fun and exciting. You know, we started the charging handle and the bolt release with kind of a specific texture pattern, and that texture pattern was really all based around what would ultimately end up becoming the Imperium handguard. And so, yeah, it's been in development for a long time. It's got some pretty awesome features that have not really been seen too much in shotgun handguards. And yeah, so it's been in the works for so long, finally getting to unveil it. And it's like, yes.
Yeah,
So it's really exciting.
well, and so you guys were known initially because you were making adapters for Magpul furniture for the Beretta shotgun family initially. What kind of prompted your own handguard out of that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of factors through it. You know, for a number of years now, we've been using the Magpul Zukov handguards that are designed for AKs, and we would modify them and make adapter pieces to be able to use them. And initially, that was really because we just wanted some M-LOK slots to be able to use with the Beretta 1301, which really was not an option with anybody else at the time. And especially having like limited machinery and ability to create various different things, I just kind of did what I had to do and made the Zukov work. And while it's been a great option for years, people still love it, still lightweight, low profile and everything. Definitely has its limitations, as does anything, especially that's not purpose built for that thing. And so, I mean, it's always been on the radar to make massive improvements. And boy, it was a few years ago, I heard a whisper that Beretta was going to be doing an updated handguard that would have M-LOK slots and would probably start eating into the Zukov's viability. And so years ago, I kind of started putting in motion and planning around doing an aluminum handguard. And definitely had required a number of updates in terms of machinery that I had. You know, my very first aluminum handguard design that I had was a bit different just because the machinery was different. So being able to make the investments, put the money back into the business to get the better machinery, to be able to create better products. I mean, that's kind of always been the name of the game. So it's definitely been a process. You know, as I've shotgunned more and more over the years and taken a lot of classes, you know, some of the first classes that I ever took, boy, the first, I think, 3 shotgun classes I ever took were with Chris Fry. And he was one of the early instructors to really teach over the shoulder loading.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's been around for a long time. But in terms of the tactical shotgun classes, he was the first guy that I met to teach that. And I really enjoyed it. There's a whole lot of benefits to it. One of the downsides is your hand is pretty much going to end up on the barrel as you're loading.
Yeah.
So having some sort of heat shield was definitely on the radar. As a little bit of a side note, it's kind of funny, you know, back when I first started training, you know, 2013, 2014-ish, you know, especially in the height of like M4 carbine and AR15.com and different things, and everybody would say like, oh, heat shields on shotguns are stupid, that's mall ninja stuff. And so that's kind of the wave that everybody was riding. And then we start actually training and we see Chris Fry's techniques that he's teaching us. We're like, wait a second, so you mean that there's something valid about heat shields on shotguns? Like, so I mean, it's been a problem to solve for a bit. And so yeah, as I come up with the idea to start doing an aluminum handguard for the 1301. There were a lot of challenges that would come along with it. Got into prototyping it a couple of years ago. Had some more challenges, both with fixturing the extrusion itself, and then really the secret sauce to this handguard is milled-in texture to be able to actually grip it very well. And solving that equation was another major hurdle that I was kind of stalling on.
Well,
So
this had a sort of a little evolutionary dead end at one point, didn't it? Didn't you attempt heat shields using a different approach that didn't pan out?
yeah. So the aluminum handguard, I was hitting some roadblocks with that, and so kind of put that project on hold until I could try to get that figured out later on, and said, well, in the interim, perhaps I can come up with a heat shield that would work well with the Zukov handguard to be at least an in between product line that would bridge that gap, so to speak. And so we started to test and prototype and design some heat shields that would work with the Zukov handguard that we'd had for quite some time. Especially since last year we started offering laser engraving texture to the Zukov handguards. That kind of took it to the next level of being a very usable handguard. So extending the life out of that was on the radar with using a heat shield. There were two main design factors that I really wanted to avoid in terms of attaching a heat shield to a 1301 with the Zukov handguard. Last year, we made some updates to the front and rear adapter pieces to the Zukov. One of the updates there was opening up the rear M-lock slots with that rear adapter piece, because the original adapters had to use part of that slot for attachment. So opening up the slots was always a massive factor. So I didn't want to utilize any M-lock slots for attaching a heat shield. And I also didn't want to have to force the end user to modify their handguards to be able to attach it. So, I mean, it didn't really leave a whole lot of options. Due to the nature of the Zukov, I was able to directly attach it to the barrel using some clamping mechanisms I came up with that actually worked very well. But as you can imagine, attaching an aluminum heat shield to a hot barrel, it's inherently, obviously, going to transfer some heat. And the question was really, how much heat will it transfer? Is it still usable? At what point, how good can this turn out? And so we did a lot of testing. I had a handful of people running them pretty hard, taking them through a number of classes. I mean, man, one drill from Steve Fisher, it was a 36 round course of fire. And so, I mean, we got those guns pretty warm. And the heat shields performed pretty well. They were not flawless, but they were pretty good. Everybody that tried them loved it. They wanted it. It was certainly value added. However, there is an actual military specification for performance for shotgun heat shields. And it's like, well, I would like to objectively try to meet that. If nothing else, just because we try to hold ourselves to a fairly high standard. And achieving objective metrics is a good way to do that.
Yeah, especially if there's a DoD standard for something, it's usually in your best interest in the firearms industry to attain that at least, because it's like, well, there's something on paper that says it needs to do at least X.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. And it just didn't meet those specifications. And again, just because it was attached directly to the barrel. There's a few ideas that we've had in terms of modifications that we could make and redesigns that we could go with to improve performance. But at the same time of starting to deal with that, there were some design changes to that heat shield that were very easy, and there were some design changes that were going to be necessary that would have required me to start from the ground up. So at that point, I started looking at, right around that point in time, I had also made some breakthroughs on the aluminum handguard as well. So it started to become a question of how much time, how much money is going to go into R&D of this heat shield that's on an AK handguard that we're modifying and adapting, whereas I've finally made the breakthroughs on the main solution to this problem that I've been working on for years. So, I mean, it's not always ideal, but I kind of chose to make the pivot away from the Zukov heat shield and into what is now the Imperium handguard.
And can you have an example of it there, right? You can show like look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
show where in particular the heat shield area where you were talking about like how that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the heat shield going completely over top. So, you can give a kind of a C-clamp or a high grip there, or as you're, uh, bringing this up. There we go. Now you can see it. Now you can see it. As you're bringing this up to violin load or, fire from a CQB position.
When Fisher's yelling in your ear to get the gun back in action, right? Like that's the.
I'm trying. My hands don't go so fast.
Well, and it's interesting because there are a lot of shooters that, unless they take a class from like a dedicated shotgun class, you may never get a shotgun hot enough to realize where that value comes in. But it's like if you're actually using a shotgun in that, in that frame of reference, it's like, oh man, there's a lot more heat generated than most people realize. And I think that like you said, the position that you have to put it in to load like that, it's something that until you've done a class like that where you're like, oh wow, I'm burning the shit out of my hands. I really wish somebody would solve that. So it's very cool that and it's a very elegant solution to it. I think aesthetically, the thing I like is the fact that you carry that almost like it's your signature texture now, right? Like that texturing also present on the charging handle, correct?
Yeah. So, years ago when I had the thoughts for the aluminum handguard, there were, going back that far, there were basically 3 non-negotiable design features that had to go into the handguard for me to kind of make it worth it, so to speak. One is keeping it low profile. Shotguns are big and bulky and heavy. So keeping it as low profile as possible was certainly number one, or in no particular order.
Yeah.
The second was full coverage, top heat shield. And then finally was going to be milled in texture. And the whole idea behind that was, in order to keep it low profile, you kind of need to eliminate a lot of M-lock slots. Every time that you add a slot, you have to have clearance for that M-lock nut. And to add that clearance, you're adding a lot of bulk, especially if you're going all the way around. So, a lot of people will see that there's no slots on the bottom, and that's just to keep this thing absolutely as low profile as possible. So to go along with keeping it low profile, well, if you don't have, to obtain decent grip and texture on a shotgun, you could cover it in M-lock slots, and then you could cover it in grip panels to get grip, and then you're at a ridiculous amount of bulk.
And weight too. You're putting all those extra parts on it.
Exactly. So, in order to have good texture and keep it low profile, to me the obvious solution was to mill in the texture, which is not an easy thing to mill in good quality texture, and especially to do it efficiently. So dating back years, I knew that this was going to be the texture that I was going to try to achieve in terms of manufacturing processes and different things. So that is why the charging handle, which came after the idea for the aluminum handguard, the charging handle texture was designed that way. And then, of course, the bolt release ended up designed that way. And so now finally, unveiling the Imperium handguard last, but really that texture was kind of first on that one way back when.
That's funny. So we, as the outside world, got exposed to it in reverse order from how you planned it.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The charging handle and bolt release were just a twinkle in my eye when I was planning out the aluminum handguard. So,
and I think it's worth talking about with regard to the things that had to happen for this product family to come into existence. Because you made a, like, kind of in passing, a comment about like getting the right equipment, and this isn't just a case of like, I bought a larger machine. It was like you straight up had to pour concrete floor in the shop, and like we're talking about a significant investment in capital equipment to get the resources on hand to do the things you're doing now. This wasn't just a matter of like, oh, I went from a half-ton truck to a 3/4 ton truck. You went you went pretty out there.
Yeah, I had some pretty good. I'm gonna think about it for a second, and you can cut this up.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I'm not pressing for you to talk about specifics of your machines, just the fact that it's like the
Yeah.
significance of what the investment you made to bring this to life.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like, the phrase gets used in jest a lot, especially like you're looking at the used car market or something. Like, I know what I got. I look at the handguard and I'm like, I know what I've got, and I know that we're going to need to move a whole lot of them. So, investing in the proper machinery and equipment to really, really ramp production, and along with that comes certain things like, hey, this machine is way heavier than any of my other machines, and the floor in my shop is not really designed for that. So yeah, I mean, last April we had a big hole cut in the floor of our shop to dig out and pour a much thicker reinforced concrete slab for the new machinery. And yes, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts that are going into the handguard itself. And for example, milling in the texture, which again, it was going to be the secret sauce all along. And if I couldn't do it the way that I wanted to do it, I wasn't going to do it. And required some custom tooling that I tried getting help with, and that didn't really work out. And so I was like, I guess that after watching a few YouTube videos, I was like, oh, I think I could probably make this tooling myself. And but yeah, did a bit more research, ended up making some of my own tooling to be able to machine the texture in efficiently.
Good.
And the results are just incredible.
Yeah, I think as for people that are not in manufacturing, to the outsider, it may not be immediately apparent just what it takes to. There's a difference between being able to make a very cool or very effective product and then being able to make that cool product at scale, like, large production, and to maintain the quality and the consistency of those parts. And then kind of the investment that goes into getting the equipment and fixturing and whatnot to be able to do that sort of process, especially with as many places out there that, they have a logo and but they don't make anything in their building. It's all sent out to shops, and it's a contract operation, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's some places that's their entire business model. You're in a unique case because like you started off as kind of a little boutique operation and have consistently grown, and now I mean, it's kind of synonymous, at least within the Beretta space in particular. Like the Beretta autoloading shotguns for the tactical world and Aridus are kind of hand in hand. So with what you guys have put together for now, making this like it's the complete family, right? The Imperium is you can buy a rack grade 1301 and put this set of accessories into it, and now it's kind of like you've answered all of the areas where it was like you couldn't get that kind of texture from the factory. So now you've got the grip and the heat shielding and things like that. What has the reaction been, because you were at the Beretta booth, what has the reaction been from the folks at Beretta with what you've done?
Oh, they've been very, very big fans. The Beretta is well known for enjoying nice looking things. Their clothing lines are beautiful. Their firearms are beautiful. I'm afraid to touch a lot of their over-unders. Some of them cost more than some of my machines. So I mean, Beretta in general is all about very aesthetically pleasing things as well. And, that's kind of an element that we've always sort of tried to incorporate as well.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to, all the cool guys want to say, I'll take function over form anytime, and that's excellent. And then all the guys that want beautiful safe queens, they don't really care. They'll take they'll take the form over function every single day.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, it's not an either or thing. These aren't mutually exclusive. We can make things that look good and perform incredibly well at the same time. And that's kind of what we've been able to do with the Imperium series.
Yeah, it looks it looks factory, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It looks factory, like it belongs on that gun. It complements the lines of the shotgun. That's for certain. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about building a purpose-driven product. And again, love the Zukov. It's still got its place, but it's an adapted thing, and it's not purpose-built to it. So when you actually purpose-build things, you can get some very clean lines and some very aesthetically pleasing
yeah.
geometry.
Well, and so just for clarity, you're not discontinuing the other product series. So like you kind of
Right,
now
right,
have
right.
in a way like a tiered category because it's like you've got your basic Zukov furniture set, right? And then up from that you've got the laser textured, and then up from that now the Imperium kind of reigns over all of that, correct?
Yeah, exactly. We're not discontinuing the Zukov by any means. In fact, we've got another order of parts in right now. So I mean, we're going to continue to make them, sell them, support them. They're still by far the lightest weight handguard for the 1301 out there, especially with uh, our new front adapter pieces that we released last year. Cuts down quite a bit of weight. So there's certainly still a place for it. But kind of like you said, it's a little bit more of a tiered thing at this point as well. So if you're looking for a super lightweight build, we can accommodate you there. If you're looking for uh, this beauty, we can
Right.
accommodate that.
Yeah, it's well, and I think that like the if granted, you're obviously a little biased toward the Beretta stuff, right? But you make shotgun accessories for other shotguns, but the Beretta is from my estimation, and maybe you would agree with this, like the last few years, it has become kind of the new gold standard as far as auto loading tactical shotguns. Is that a fair statement to make?
I think that's completely fair. I mean, you say I might be a little bit biased, and I get accused of that quite a bit. They say like, oh, well, of course that you tell people to get Beretta shotguns, you make the parts for the Beretta
Yeah.
shotguns. It's like, no, it's the other way around. The Beretta shotguns are fantastic, and so I wanted one, and I want parts for that Beretta shotgun. So I could see how it could be a chicken or egg kind of thing, but yeah, the reality is like I'm biased, but it's only because the 1301 is a great product, and that's the one that I've kind of dived after for making accessories for. So yeah, I mean, between being fairly affordable, the 1301s continue to go up in price, but the reliability is there, and they're lightweight guns, fast cycling. They're just great guns, and so that's I don't promote the 1301 because I'm trying to move parts necessarily. I make the parts for the 1301 because it's just a great gun.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I can totally see that. And I think when you look around the industry at the other guys who are the subject matter experts on the shotgun as a weapon, the ones that are instructors and using it in that more tactical role, they all kind of share that sentiment. I don't know too many people that are huge detractors of the platform. In other firearms categories, there's always like a naysayer, but you don't really see that in this particular product line. And along those lines, I mean, you pretty much in the shotgun space, you have pretty deep relationships with most of the go-to instructors in that realm, wouldn't you say? Like you're pretty tight with all the guys teaching the shotgun skills.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's really just because I train with them. When heck, it might have been the first time. I think it was the first time that I met you. Was probably the first time that I met Chris Fry at that Polypalooza 2, I believe
Yeah,
it was.
it was.
And so I wasn't. This is a little bit of a deep cut history, but that's okay. So I was not planning on going to Polypalooza at the time. I had some very, very rough, ugly prototypes of the QDC, which was our flagship product. And speaking with Tom Kelly from Dark Star Gear, he says, "Oh, are you going to Polypalooza?" And he said, "No." He says, "You need to go to Polypalooza. Chris Fry is teaching a shotgun block." And so Tom was one of the probably 5 people that knew what I was working on at the time. So go take this shotgun block with Chris Fry. Prototype QDC broke immediately. But first time I ever live fired it was at that shotgun block. So, it was a little risky. But the instruction was good enough that I realized immediately, if I'm going to make parts for this thing, I need to know how to use it.
Yeah.
And so that Polypalooza was in August. That might have been 2013 or 2014.
13, maybe.
And then like October or November, I went up to New York to train with Chris Fry, and I've been taking multiple shotgun classes a year since then. So, I mean, you can do the math pretty quickly. We're going into 10 years at multiple classes a year. I train a lot, and I don't just train with, the same. I try to train with absolutely everybody. Heck, on February 8th, I'm training with a brand new outfit, Green Ops, that I haven't trained with them before. So, it's all about, just trying to understand what the end users want.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was kind of the initial idea. But the shotgun grew on me so quickly that I just like it. So that's part of it. Like, I have fun going to the classes, but classes are also incredibly demanding on gear. If you are going to see if something is going to hold up and break and see how it performs, a class is a fantastic way to do it. And so, I mean, that's been a part of the reason why I take a lot of classes as well, is product testing. And so, yeah, I've gotten to know and become, I guess you could say friends with at least some of the shotgun instructors out there. And, if nothing else, are on pretty good terms with them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the one in the industry. It's not uncommon that there are products that are designed by engineers, and the engineers are good at moving pixels on a screen, but have very little interest in the actual end use of the product itself. They could just as easily be designing, remote controls for TVs or something like that, but they happen to be designing firearms parts. And so you don't see them on the range. And I think you could almost make the case that as a result, the products maybe reflect the fact that it doesn't have the same intimate knowledge of the end user's application of the product. You're the guy that designs the product. You're the guy that machines the product. You're the guy that, has been doing the testing on the product. It's like at all stages of the evolutionary cycle of this thing, you're involved with it. And it's kind of reflected in the execution, I think. And granted, I'm biased. I'm a friend of yours, and we've known each other for years in the industry, but like there's a lot to be said for the fact that you've put in the reps like that to truly vet your stuff. And I know you've got, like, kind of like we do, there's a cadre of subject matter experts that when you've got a new prototype, there's a short list of people you are shipping things out to, just telling them, hey, put this on your gun, test it, let me know what happens, give me your feedback. Are you able to share some of the people that you work with in that capacity?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, certainly in the instructor space, that's a lot. Those guys have seen gear come in and out of classes. So, I mean, they've kind of got a little bit of an idea of what to look for. They've been around high quality and low quality gear, so they can kind of, figure that out. And plus, they just flat out know how to use these things well.
Yeah.
And so in that use, they're able to figure out, what works, why it doesn't work. And so, I mean, guys like Rob and Matt Hott, who are legendary instructors, of course, got some samples to Eric Gelhaus, Steve Fisher, some of my buddies, John Willis and Zach Cox. They are, if you don't know their names, watch out, because they're coming up in the shotgun instructor space pretty quickly, because they're getting after it.
Where are they out of? Where are they out of?
So Zach Cox is in North Carolina and John Willis is in Ohio. So, I mean, I met them at a Rob and Matt Hott Simtac shotgun class about a year and a half ago. Hit it off pretty well. They had been customers prior to that. I had never met them beforehand, but they're great shooters. Anytime I run into great shooters in a class, we kind of gravitate towards each other and end up standing next to each other and, like, busting each other's balls a little bit in terms of, like, trying to outperform each other. So there's that level of friendship with a lot of these guys as well, where it's like, there's a professional side of things where, very, very by the book. Here's this. I need you to test this. And then there's the other side of it of like, hey, you missed your bolt release on that, you dummy. What are you doing? You gotta. That's the slowest reload I've ever seen. You suck. So I mean, yeah, there's some good guys in the industry and around, and people that I've met that been really able to help with product testing and evaluation and giving me good feedback. And I mean that's one aspect is, yeah, I'm the guy that uses it all, or I use the stuff, I design it, I test it. But at the same time, I do my best to make sure that I'm maintaining an objective point of view and sanity check myself pretty often with other guys around me that, you'll hear them say good things about me, but they'll also preface it with saying like, yeah, I'm friends with Adam, but this is still objective feedback. And they know that I need that objective feedback. I don't want people blowing smoke, thinking that something that I make is awesome or cool or whatever, and gloss over issues that need improved. That's part of
it. And to that end, I mean, the charging handle was not a perfect silky smooth rollout either. You dealt with that and handled it in, I think, a remarkable way. Talk just a moment about that, like, because you had units that went out and then like it was like, yeah, it's not quite right. Go into a little bit about that.
Yes, I mean, for a while, I had an idea of a charging handle. Again, most of the product, well, pretty much all products that I've made, it's like, I don't know if this is going to sell well, but this is what I want. If I was going to make something, this is how I would make it. This is the design that I would like to do. So when it came to the charging handle, I had some ideas in terms of how I wanted to try to execute it. Initially, it seemed like trying to make it out of one piece of steel was going to be good to go. And all the reason I'll be the first to say I'm not a metallurgist. I'm not an engineer either. I'm a freaking coal miner that taught himself how to CNC machine and make some cool stuff. So you gotta kind of figure out where that's at with it. So at the time I was figuring 4140 was going to be a pretty acceptable material to use for one piece charging handle. We did a lot of testing with it, never had any issues. And then put them out to market, and some of the people had the stems, or I'm sorry, the knob snap off. And after I had seen I think after I had seen two, the red flags were like super high, and then at the third one is like, oh no.
Yeah.
So I mean, that. I learned a long time ago that, like, hey, if you have to deal with something terrible, like, take 5 minutes, freak out. It's okay. Like, let those emotions out. You're going to panic and, be upset and everything. And then, like, hey, 5 minutes are up. Get to work at fixing this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was rough, but we pretty much immediately issued a recall to the point of, as soon as we would get in contact with people to even just tell them about it, basically we would send out an email saying, hey, this is recalled. As soon as we would verify that these people knew about it, we just issued them a refund. No questions asked, just done with it. Throw it in the trash, please. Don't use it. Because listen, I want my stuff to be able to be relied on for people to trust their lives to.
Yeah.
And, something doesn't perform that way, like, I would never want to be the guy responsible for somebody's stuff breaking, under those, under a serious circumstance. So yeah, issued a recall, designed it from the ground up, changed the materials that we used, ended up making the stem out of 17-4 stainless, which is stronger than 4140, made the knob out of aluminum, which is lighter weight, moved to a 2-piece design just because that changed a lot of geometry to mitigate the stress on the failure points that we were encountering. And lost a nice chunk of money on the recall, but you got to do what you got to do. And I'll make that trade any day.
Yeah,
it sucks for things. Sucks for the bank account, but I mean, my integrity is not for
Well,
sale.
that's the big thing is there's so many companies that would have just swept that under the rug. They would have refunded people on a case by case basis as they complained. But they wouldn't have gone to the lengths that you did, and I think that like the fact that you immediately took corrective action on the redesign and things, again, most companies wouldn't have because that would have the effect of the bottom line, like you just said, that you were willing to take the black eye in order to make it right and to protect the brand. So that's a real testimonial for what you have built as an organization there. Um, in your vision for 2025, obviously you're releasing this brand new thing at the very beginning of the year, so there's a lot of runway ahead of us yet. Is there anything from Aridus that like we should be watching for as far as places you're going to be for classes, events you're going to be involved with in the shooting space? Like what do you have on your calendar for the year as far as what you're going to do to get the word out about this product?
Yes, I mean, like I mentioned, I've got a class coming up with Green Ops on, I think it's February 8th in Culpeper, Virginia. I'll be heading to TACCon in Dallas this spring. There'll be some shotgun shooting and instruction there. There's probably a class or two throughout the summer I'll jump into, and then generally end up wrapping up the training year with Thunderstick Summit, which is really becoming kind of the premier shotgun training event. Getting some of the best shotgun instructors out there, like Eric Gelhaus, Robin Matt Hott, Steve Fisher, Daryl Bolke, Greg Ellifritz.
Tell people where it is. Where do they do that?
This year, I believe it's going to be in Vegas. So yeah, that's going to be one of the main things. I've been fortunate enough to have been an event sponsor since the inaugural Thunderstick Summit, so the involvement there is pretty thorough and heavy, and it's going to be a great time for sure.
Yeah. And then within, as much as we're focused on obviously the Beretta stuff, can you talk briefly about what other shotgun products you support as far as product offerings within the Aridus family?
Yeah, sure. So we like pump guns too. Don't get me wrong, pump guns are pretty fun. You get to be part of the process.
I'm helping.
So, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so we make our quick detach carrier, which is a mechanical detachable shell carrier, our flagship product. Make those for Remington 870s, Mossberg 500s, and 590s. We make our co-witness ready optic mount, which is direct red dot mount with integrated rear backup sights that are adjustable for windage and elevation. We make those for Mossbergs and Remingtons as well. We're going to start diving into some other makes and models as we're moving forward. Improving our or expanding our Crom lineup for more guns and more optic footprints. Expanding some of the QDC lineup and making some updates to those. Pretty much everything across the board. Having a conversation yesterday at the Beretta Range Day. We really don't go more than a couple months of production without making tweaks of one kind or another. And the end user may or may not ever notice some of those tweaks, but internally, whether it's something as simple as making assembly easier on us, or if it's like, oh, I was finally able to get that edge deburred a little bit nicer in machine. So like just always kind of making improvements as well, even in existing lineups. So there's a few new guns that we're going to be looking to support, especially with the Imperium handguard and ultimately the charging handles and bolt releases for other things as well.
That's exciting. I going into SHOT Show this year, do you have any, I don't know, spidey sense predictive things about like what you think is in store for just shotgun market in general? Is there anything that either you're hoping to see or that you anticipate seeing from not necessarily even within your brand, but like within other products and companies out there?
Yes, I don't know I mean, I've heard whispers, and I don't know how much is public versus how much is not, but there's seems to be interesting 20 gauge happenings. Um, and so just being able to have smaller, lighter weight, handier guns for a wider range of individuals, um, that could open up some pretty exciting opportunities. So, for example, as far as the QDC space goes, we've only ever had a shell carrier for a 12 gauge, so we're going to be looking heavily at making a 20 gauge shell carrier as well. So yeah, there are a few things that are happening in the industry that I've kind of got my eye on that we're going to start planning, what we're doing around that as well.
Yeah, and what I would say, it seems we've had so many years of AR-15 and just AR family related innovations and product focus that, in a way, the shotgun market is kind of like this breath of fresh air, where it's like, something different, right? Like it's such a it's a break from the traditional, like, what new forend are you going to put on your AR? What new optic are they making for the AR? Like the shotgun is finally getting some of the modernization benefits that came 15, 20 years ago because of the war on terror. You're now seeing it applied to shotguns. And the fact that you said you're looking at adding product offerings for the pump guns does give a way for a lot of people where you can make a very kind of sexy shotgun without having to break the bank. Obviously, the price of entry for a Beretta is significantly different than a Mossberg 500 or an 870.
Right.
I think the enjoyment a lot of us have as hobbyists in the firearm space is buying a rack grade gun and then making it your own by putting the different accessories on it. It's the old Barbie dolls, but for men kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as your goals for SHOT Show this year, is there anything, going in the doors to the event? Are you looking at bigger picture, trying to link up with other shotgun brands, or is this more of like a year of building relationships within various sales channels? What are you hoping to leave SHOT Show as your big win for the event?
Yes, I mean there's definitely a few different avenues that I'm looking to accomplish for sure. For sure. One of which is obviously just exposure of it. I'm still a pretty small shop. I don't have a booth myself. There's a few booths that some of my products will be on display at, which will be pretty cool. I'll be hanging around those. Most specifically, probably the Beretta booth as well as the Kickies booth. I don't know their booth numbers off the top of my head, but might have to look
That's
that
okay.
up.
We can look it up
But,
and add it as the B-roll.
yeah, perfect, perfect. Yes, I mean, outside of exposure, there are a couple of other manufacturers outside of Beretta that I'm looking to meet some of their engineers, especially in terms of adapting the Imperium handguard to some other models. Beretta's been very helpful in terms of getting prints of critical components and figuring out interfacing and different things. Saved a lot of reverse engineering and
Yeah.
times of the calipers and different things. So just talking to some other companies saying like, hey, that having something to be able to show them, this is what I want to do for your gun. Can you help me help you?
Yes.
So that's going to be one of the main objectives for this week as well.
It's funny. You and I have that in common. And I think, listen, if there's anyone in the firearms industry, I'm talking to you, gun companies. The best thing that any company can do, and Beretta, you're correct, has been very easy to work with when it comes to getting CAD files and product support for being able to build accessories to support their products. But it's amazing how short-sighted some of these manufacturers are, where they are reluctant, if not completely unwilling, to release file support for their products, and then they still want aftermarket support for accessories. And it's like, you can't have it both ways, because if I have to reverse engineer off of a product, it's like the tolerance stacking that happens, where it's like, well, the sample I have and I reverse engineered, how do I know where that falls within your parameters of manufacturing?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a testimonial on we you and I have a lot of friends in common within Beretta, and I think that's the one thing that that company gets right is uh, they know how to work with the accessory market and have been successful, especially in the last several years, in forging those good relationships. And as a result, they've gotten product support from brands that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So yeah, I look forward to hearing that. Hopefully now you'll get even more success with from other manufacturers. But I do think it's something it's a great failing of the firearms industry that we don't share a little bit better among the CAD offerings now, because everyone's working in CAD. It's not like 40 years ago where only the big operations had sophisticated CAD. It's like it's how a product gets made. If you want an accessory to work properly with your product, you need to get us this support. Um, so I guess circling back to the Imperium series now, when do you anticipate, and I realize it's still a fuzzy number on the calendar, but like when do you roughly anticipate that units will be available for ordering, and when do you anticipate then they will be shipping?
Yeah, so the ordering and shipping are going to be exactly the same. We stopped doing pre-orders or anything like that some time ago. Taking money without product is more headache than it's worth. And so, yeah, we don't do that anymore. But the Imperium for the 1301 Tactical is going to be going into production within the next month. And so we will begin selling and shipping them early Q2, so probably April.
Okay. And then talk me through price point. Where are these going to fall roughly, or do you have a set pricing in place now?
Yeah, so the 1301 Tactical will be an MSRP of $300. We're currently testing one for the A300. That'll end up being a little bit more, just because we have to replace the factory piston stop, and so it's another component, another component that also needs testing. So that's going to be a little bit further down the road. But yeah, the 1301 Tactical version, right around April, $300. Comes in a shade under 12.5 ounces. So in terms of looking at the size, price, weight of it with others on the market, it fits very nicely into that market.
Yeah. And I don't want to be a pain in the butt, but I saw some pictures so now I have to ask this question about colors, because I've seen some various they're not just coming out in black. What is there going to be an offering for other colors or patterns in any way, or is that just for marketing purposes that I saw some other images?
Yes, I mean there's definitely some custom shops that I've been working with. Dave Mods, he's pretty awesome. Steve at Mad Pig Customs, we've been doing some work with them as well. So really cool builds, really neat paint jobs from them. As far as from us, we will probably get into some different anodized colors as we move forward. That's going to be something that's kind of fun. It's been on my mind for a while. It'd be cool to like do sets of like gray anodized colors or stuff, something like that. And now that we've got an aluminum handguard, it kind of it'll really tie the room
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
So yeah, we'll probably be doing some colors down the road, but at least for starting out with, everybody loves black.
Yeah, it's the basics, right? You got to start with the beginning. Well, I'm very excited for this. I know that there are a lot of shotgun guys that are chomping at the bit to get their hands on these things, and I am very appreciative that while sitting in Las Vegas, you took the time to sit down and talk with me about this.
That'd be awesome.
Well, thank you again. We're going to cut away for now, and then we will look forward to hearing from you about how things went at SHOT Show.
Perfect. I appreciate it.